They will not respect what you do not protect. They will not honor what you do not guard. Your soul is not a public marketplace, it is a temple, and not everyone is meant to walk inside. Yet how often have you betrayed yourself in the name of kindness? How often have you said yes when your body whispered no? How often have you let the world drink from your well, only to discover the water had run dry and you were left parched, broken, unseen? Carl Jung once said that the greatest burden a child carries is the unlived life of the parent. But the greatest burden an adult carries is the unlived life of the self, the sacred life you forfeit each time you let others trespass, across the lines you should have drawn in fire. Boundaries are not walls. They are not cruelty. They are the invisible lines where love for yourself and respect for others meet. They are the sacred geometry of your soul, the architecture of freedom. But here is the truth. Few dare to speak. To live with real boundaries, you must be ruthless. Ruthless not in hatred, but in clarity. Ruthless not in anger, but in devotion to your soul's integrity. For the world will test you. It will knock upon your door again and again with needy hands and hungry mouths, with flattery, with guilt, with shame. They will call you selfish. They will say you've changed. They will whisper that you are cold, detached, unkind. But you must remember, boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are love with a backbone. Think of the forest. It thrives because the tree does not give every branch away, does not let every vine strangle its roots. The river flows because it holds its course, and does not dissolve into every dry field it passes. So too must you learn. If you do not hold your shape, you will vanish into the hunger of others. Jung wrote that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires confrontation with the shadow. And the shadow of the kind soul, the giving soul, is this: resentment. You give too much, too often, too freely. And in secret you grow bitter, angry at the world for taking, angry at yourself for letting it. This is why your yes must be earned. This is why your no must be final. This is why your silence must be sacred. To be ruthless with your boundaries is not to hate. It is to love without destroying yourself. It is to know that your energy, your time, your presence are the most precious offerings you have, and not all are worthy of them. The serpent sheds its skin. The warrior sharpens his blade. The soul must draw its circle. For if you refuse to guard your temple, others will defile it. If you refuse to protect your well, others will drain it. And if you refuse to hold your ground, you will vanish into 1,000 fragments scattered across the expectations of the world. Be ruthless. Be clear. Be unshakable. Not because you are hard, but because you are holy. Not because you are cruel, but because you are alive, and the soul that honors its boundaries is the soul that finally learns to honor itself. There is a subtle poison in the world. It wears the face of kindness, the mask of innocence, the voice of need. It whispers, if you truly loved me, you would give more. If you were good, you would not say no. If you cared, you would carry my burden. And so you bend. You bend until your spine aches, until your hands shake from holding too much, until your eyes grow heavy with the weight of unshed tears. But tell me, traveler of the soul, when did self-betrayal become a virtue? When did exhaustion become holiness? When did sacrifice without end become love? Carl Jung warned of the danger of inflation, the swelling of the ego when it tries to be God. And is this not what we do when we imagine we can save everyone, heal everyone, carry everyone? We take on roles that do not belong to us. We try to be saviors, and in the end, we become slaves. You were not born to be consumed. You were not born to be the endless well, to be the unguarded field, to be the open door through which all may pass. No, you were born with a center, with a soul that whispers, "This is who I am. This is what I need. This is where I end and you begin." The ruthless boundary is not drawn in anger. It is drawn in truth. It is the soul saying, "I will not abandon myself to make you comfortable. I will not betray myself to soothe your fear. I will not extinguish my fire just to keep you warm." Listen carefully. When you first draw the line, the world will resist. Those who fed upon your silence will cry betrayal. Those who thrived upon your giving will call you selfish. Those who benefited from your absence of limits will name you cruel. Do not be deceived. This is not the voice of truth. This is the cry of dependence, the protest of those who fear losing access to what was never theirs to take. The ruthless soul does not explain endlessly. It does not apologize for existing. It does not beg for permission to stand tall. It simply stands, silent, clear, immovable. Jung wrote that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a part of the self, but by integrating it. And boundaries are the integration of your forgotten strength. The strength you buried beneath guilt, the power you silenced beneath shame, the authority you abandoned in the name of peace. To be ruthless is to reclaim this strength, to speak with a voice that does not tremble, to look into the eyes of demand and say, "No, I choose myself." And what is the fruit of such ruthlessness? It is not isolation. It is not cruelty. It is peace. It is freedom. It is the stillness of knowing that your yes has weight because it is not given cheaply. It is the joy of discovering that love can only be real when it is chosen, not extracted. Consider the garden. Without offense, it is ravaged by animals. Without care, it is overrun by weeds. But with boundaries, it flourishes. The flowers open, the fruit ripens, the soil renews itself. So too with you. When you become ruthless with your boundaries, you create space for your soul to bloom. You discover what you truly value. You learn who truly belongs beside you. Because here is the secret. The ones who love you will not flee from your boundaries. They will honor them. They will feel safer because of them. For the one who knows how to guard themselves also knows how to love without chains. The ruthless boundary is not a wall to keep others out. It is the gate through which only the true may enter. And when the false leaves, when the parasites fall away, when the needy voices fade, you will find yourself standing in a silence that feels like home. Every soul carries two voices within. One says, "Be kind, give more, do not disappoint." The other whispers, "Enough. Stop. Protect yourself." Most of us learn to listen only to the first. We become pleasers, healers, martyrs. We wear smiles like masks and call it goodness. But inside, the second voice grows louder, pounding like a drum aching to be heard. Jung would tell us this voice belongs to the shadow, not the darkness of evil, but the darkness of truth suppressed. The hidden need, the silenced boundary, the rightful self who demands recognition. If you never give this shadow a seat at your table, it will rise in rebellion. It will appear in sudden anger, in hidden resentment, in cold withdrawal from those you once adored, and you will wonder, why am I so bitter, so drained, so empty? The answer is simple. Because you have lived too long without yourself. To be ruthless with your boundaries is to welcome the shadow. It is to say, "I see you. You are not my enemy. You are the guardian of my soul." Do you remember the myths of old? The dragon who guards the treasure? The monster who waits at the cave's entrance? This is your shadow, and the treasure it guards is your power, your ability to say no, your right to stand tall, your sacred strength to be unyielding. The world teaches us to fear this dragon. It calls it selfish, arrogant, cruel. But the wise soul learns that the dragon is not there to destroy. It is there to protect. When you are ruthless with your boundaries, you learn to ride this dragon, to harness its fire, to let its fierce presence burn away all that is false. But hear me clearly, ruthlessness is not recklessness. It is not lashing out in rage. It is not building walls of pride. And once you taste this wholeness, you begin to see how cheap the old bargains of your life once were. You see how often you gave away your fire for a little warmth from others. You see how often you sold your voice just to remain in the room. You see how often you let your soul be diluted just to avoid being alone. But alone, you discover you are not empty. You are vast. You are radiant. You are inhabited by a silence so profound it feels like God Himself is breathing through you. In this silence, you no longer beg. You no longer chase. You no longer fear the loss of those who cannot meet you because you have found the one presence that will never leave you, yourself. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and you cannot become who you are if you are endlessly dissolving into others. You cannot find your center if you never guard your edges. You cannot be whole if you are constantly split by demands that are not your own. So yes, be ruthless. Be ruthless until your solitude becomes sanctuary. Be ruthless until your silence becomes song. Be ruthless until your boundaries are not a cage, but a cathedral. Then, and only then, will you discover the paradoxical truth. The one who needs nothing is the one who can give everything. The one who stands alone is the one who can meet another as equal. The one who guards their fire is the one who can share its warmth endlessly. This is the transformation of ruthless boundaries. They begin as shields, but they end as wings. What once felt like hard edges becomes the open sky. And in this sky, you are no longer a servant of demand. You are no longer a victim of need. You are sovereign. You are whole. You are free. The soul that has become ruthless with its boundaries enters a new season of life, not a season of isolation, but of clarity, not a life without people, but a life without parasites. You begin to see relationships differently. You no longer ask, "Who will accept me?" You ask instead, "Who honors the truth of my being?" You no longer ask, "Who needs me?" You ask instead, "Who grows beside me?" And here, you discover something liberating. Boundaries are not the end of love. They are the beginning of sacred love. For sacred love cannot exist in confusion. It cannot thrive where one devours the other. It cannot bloom where fear dictates every choice. Sacred love requires two whole beings, standing within their own circles, meeting in freedom, choosing each other not from hunger, but from abundance. Jung wrote that the task of relationships is to hold the tension of opposites. Two souls, distinct yet united, each guarding their own integrity, yet daring to dance together, in trust. This is the paradoxical fruit of ruthless boundaries. They protect individuality, and in doing so, they make true union possible. Without them, there is only fusion, dependency, confusion. With them, there is respect, freedom, devotion. Do not mistake this path for coldness. The ruthless soul is not closed, but open in a way the unguarded never are. For only when you have nothing to fear losing can you give yourself without hesitation. Only when you have nothing to prove can you love without demand. Only when you have nothing to hide can you be seen without shame. This is why the ruthless boundary is holy. It is not born from hatred, but from reverence. Reverence for the self. Reverence for love. Reverence for the mystery of human connection, which cannot be forced, only chosen. Think of the flame. Without the boundary of the candle, it burns out. But with the candle's form, it becomes light. Think of the river. without its banks. It floods and destroys. But with its boundaries, it nourishes all it touches. So too with the soul. Without boundaries, you lose yourself. With them, you become radiant. And when you live this way, you will notice a subtle shift in your presence. People will sense it, though they may not name it. They will feel that you cannot be moved by flattery, nor controlled by guilt. They will sense that your love is real because it is free. Some will be drawn to this light, others will recoil. Let them. 4. Your task is not to be liked by all, but to stand as who you truly are. The rest will sort itself. And so, traveler, let the ruthless boundary become your compass. Let it be the line you draw in silence, the vow you keep in secret, the shape you honor in every choice. For in truth, your life is your temple, and the doors of this temple must not remain open to every wandering soul. They must open with discernment, with reverence, with care. Guard this temple, not because you are fragile, but because you are sacred. Not because you hate the world, but because you love the self within it. And when you do, you will discover at last, ruthlessness is not cruelty, it is devotion. Devotion to the soul you were born to become. At the end of all things, there is only this. You must decide whom you will serve. Will you serve fear? Then you will spend your life dissolving, saying yes when your heart screams no, chasing the scraps of approval, losing yourself in the endless hunger of others. Will you serve guilt? Then you will carry burdens that were never yours, weighing yourself down with debts you did not create, crucifying your soul on the altar of obligation. Or will you serve the self, the eternal spark, the image of God within, the one voice that whispers beneath all noise? Guard me. Protect me. Become me. Carl Jung called this the journey of individuation, the path of becoming whole, the privilege of a lifetime. And no one walks this path without boundaries. No one becomes who they are while giving themselves away piece by piece. The ruthless boundary is the sword that cuts you free from false ties. It is the shield that guards your inner flame. It is the gate through which only truth may enter. And so, traveler, be ruthless. Be ruthless with your time, for it is finite. Be ruthless with your energy, for it is sacred. Be ruthless with your love, for it is holy. Be ruthless with your soul, for it is the only one you have. Yes, they will call you selfish. Yes, they will call you hard. Yes, they will call you cold. But you must remember, they called the prophets mad. They called the saints arrogant. They called the free dangerous. Better to be called hard by the blind than to be broken by your own betrayal. Better to be called selfish by the hungry than to live forever starving in silence. Better to be called ruthless than to waste the only life you have in endless self-abandonment. And here is the final paradox. When you are ruthless with your boundaries, you become gentle with your soul. When you are unyielding with others, you become merciful to yourself. And when you are faithful to your own truth, you finally carry something worth giving to the world. For love without selfhood is dependency. But love rooted in selfhood becomes light. It becomes freedom. It becomes truth. So walk now, with sword in one hand and silence in the other. Let your no be clear, let your yes be sacred, let your life be shaped not by demand, but by devotion. Be ruthless with your boundaries, and watch how your soul, once scattered in pieces, gathers itself at last, rises whole, and walks the earth in freedom. It is the discipline of the warrior monk, the clarity of the sage, the unshakable silence of the mountain. Boundaries are not only about saying no to others, they are about saying yes to yourself. Yes to your solitude, yes to your healing, yes to your inner callings, to your creative fire, to your quiet joys that need protection from noise and demand. Think of the artist who guards her studio time fiercely. Think of the thinker who withdraws into silence. Think of the monk who enters the cloister. Each is ruthless, not because they hate the world, but because they know their soul will wither if they are endlessly available. And what of love? Many fear boundaries will destroy intimacy. They fear saying no will drive people away. But what intimacy is there in being consumed? What love is there in being hollowed out? The truth is this: love without boundaries is dependency, but love with boundaries becomes freedom. It becomes the union of two whole souls, not the fusion of two broken halves. It becomes a dance, not a chain. It becomes choice, not compulsion. And so, the ruthless boundary is not the death of love. It is its birth. For only when you stand firm in yourself can you meet another as they truly are. Only when you protect your fire can you share its warmth without burning out. Listen then. Every no you speak in truth is a yes to your own becoming. Every line you draw in courage is a path cleared for your destiny. Every silence you guard is a womb where your soul can grow. Be ruthless, traveler, for without ruthlessness, you will never taste the gentleness of a life that is truly your own. Every great transformation begins with loss. When you become ruthless with your boundaries, you will lose people. You will lose relationships, connections, even identities you once clung to. At first, this loss feels like death. It feels like betrayal. It feels like exile from the life you once knew. But in truth, it is a birth. The death of false belonging is the birth of true freedom. The death of endless giving is the birth of authentic love. The death of the weak, pliable selfies, the birth of the soul with a spine. Jung wrote that individuation often feels like dismemberment, the tearing away of illusions, the dismantling of false selves, the stripping down to essence. Boundaries, too, demand this dismemberment. For each time you draw a line, a false bond must be cut. Yes, it hurts. The silence that follows can be sharp, like standing in an empty cathedral long. After the worshippers have left, you will question yourself, have I gone too far? Am I selfish? Will anyone remain? But do not mistake the echo of emptiness for failure. It is the silence before the new music begins. Think of the tree in winter. Its branches are bare, its leaves scattered, its life hidden deep in the roots. To the untrained eye, it looks dead. But this emptiness is preparation, a clearing for the spring to come. So too with you. The loss that follows boundaries is not destruction. It is pruning. And pruning is the law of growth. Those who leave were never truly with you. They were with your compliance, your silence, your giving. When you ceased to offer yourself as sacrifice, their interest vanished. Do not chase them. Do not mourn them longer than they deserve. They have served their purpose, to reveal that you cannot buy love with self-abandonment. And what of those who remain? Ah, here lies the miracle. The ones who stay after you have become ruthless, the ones who honor your no, the ones who celebrate your edges instead of erasing them. These are the souls destined to walk with you. They will not drain you, for they have learned to drink from their own wells. They will not chain you, for they know freedom is the soil of love. They will not resent your strength, for they see it as an invitation to grow strong themselves. This is the paradox of ruthless boundaries. You lose the many but gain the true. You empty the room, but those who remain are sacred. You say fewer yeses, but each yes becomes a holy vow. Understand this. You do not need many. You do not need a crowd. You do not need every voice to approve of you. The soul was not made for the applause of the masses. It was made for the quiet recognition of the few who see you. Jung taught that the individuation process is lonely, for it requires standing apart, refusing to dissolve into the collective. But this loneliness is not despair. It is the silence of the temple before the presence of God enters. It is the solitude where you discover the self, vast and luminous, waiting beneath all the masks. So yes, be ruthless. Lose what must be lost. Grieve. If you must, but do not cling to ghosts. For each soul who leaves, space is made for the one who truly belongs. And in that space, your own self steps forward at last, not diluted, not divided, but whole. Be ruthless, for only in this holy ruthlessness can you be reborn. There comes a moment when you realize your boundaries are not only for others, they are also for yourself. How often do you cross your own lines? You say you will rest, yet you work until collapse. You promise to speak truth, yet you swallow silence. You vow to walk away, yet you return to the same wounds. And so the deepest betrayal is not what others do to you. It is what you do to yourself when you ignore your own soul's voice. Carl Jung spoke of the self as the guiding principle of the psyche, the great inner compass, the God image within. To ignore your boundaries, to trample your own lines, is to turn against this inner divinity. It is to make yourself an enemy of yourself. This is why ruthlessness is necessary, not cruelty, not hardness, but the unshakable decision to no longer betray your own soul. When you say, "I will not cross this line again," and you keep your word, you begin to trust yourself, and trust in the self is the beginning of power. Consider how a kingdom falls. It is not always through invasion. Often it collapses from within because its own guards abandon their posts. Because its gates are left unguarded, so too does the soul collapse when its inner guard is asleep. Your no is not only a defense against others, it is a defense against your own weakness, your own temptation to dissolve, your own longing, to avoid conflict by abandoning yourself. And yet, here is the paradox. The moment you begin to honor yourself ruthlessly, the world outside begins to shift. Those who once tested you stop trying. Those who once drained you fall away. Those who once manipulated you lose their power. Because people sense when your walls are hollow and when they are stone. They sense when your no is negotiable and when it is law. They sense when you speak from fear and when you speak from truth. To be ruthless with your boundaries is to send a silent signal into the world. I cannot be moved from myself. And those who cannot honor that truth will vanish. But those who can, they will draw closer with reverence. This is the mystery of authority. It is not found in force. It is not found in shouting or threatening. It is found in the quiet, unyielding presence of the one who stands firm. Jung once wrote that the greatest gift of individuation is the birth of authentic authority, not domination, not control, but the authority of the soul that has united its fragments and now walks as one. Such authority does not beg, does not chase, does not explain endlessly. It simply is, and its boundaries are not negotiable. Ask yourself, where have you betrayed yourself? Where do you still allow your weakness to write the rules of your life? Where do you say never again, but find yourself repeating the same patterns? There lies your work. There lies the place where your ruthless boundary must be drawn. For the greatest act of love you will ever perform is not toward another. It is toward yourself. It is the moment you finally say, "I will not cross this line again. I belong to myself now." And when that vow is spoken, not as a passing wish, but as an unshakable truth, the entire axis of your life begins to turn. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your worth. You stop living like a beggar of love. You rise as a sovereign, a soul who does not barter its essence, a soul who does not beg for belonging, a soul who knows that the only approval that matters is the approval of the self. Be ruthless, for without this inner ruthlessness, you will remain at war with yourself, and the one who wars against themselves will always be conquered by others. There is a sacred terror in becoming sovereign, for when you rise into your own authority, you will discover something unsettling. You no longer need what once controlled you. The approval of others loses its spell. The fear of rejection dissolves like mist in sunlight. The hunger for belonging is replaced by the stillness of belonging to yourself. And yet this freedom can feel frightening. For many of us have been trained since childhood to measure our worth in mirrors, in the eyes of parents, teachers, lovers, crowds. We have lived so long leaning on others that when we finally stand alone, our legs tremble. Carl Jung wrote that the path of individuation is the path of solitude, not because the individual rejects humanity, but because they refuse to drown in the collective. To be whole, you must dare to stand apart. This is the essence of ruthless boundaries. It is not just protection against others, but liberation from the prison of dependency. It is to say, I can walk alone, and because I can walk alone, I can finally walk with others in truth. Do you see the paradox? The one who fears solitude is never free in love. They cling, they bargain, they beg. But the one who is unafraid of solitude can love with open hands, for they know they are complete, and what is complete does not grasp. This is why your boundaries matter. They are the crucible in which your aloneness is forged into gold. They strip away the false until only the essence remains. You standing as soul, untouched, undivided, whole.